Believe it or not, out of all the cars sold by the Volkswagen Group in the last year, the very best seller was the Volkswagen Tiguan. What's that? Not the Golf, I hear you say? No. Surely the Skoda Octavia? No. Audi A3? No. Surely the Seat Ibiza? I reckon they sell loads of those in Spain. No. Honestly, it was the Volkswagen Tiguan. And guess who gets to drive it around today to help you decide whether or not you should get one? Yeah, me. But before you do that, make sure you like and subscribe the Car Buyer YouTube channel. Give us a thumbs up on this video and click the bell icon so then you get notifications for every time a video goes live. The second generation Tiguan was launched in 2016 and was so popular that this new facelifted version was more about cosmetic retouches than drastic plastic surgery. We've already seen this winged eyeliner for the headlights on the Mark 8 Golf, and the model name in letters across the boot lid is standard on a lot of new cars now as well. The bonnet, grille and front bumper have all been redesigned, while the engines and interior tech have been updated as well. All in all, the changes modernise the Tiguan rather than reinvent it. It looks sharper, especially at the front, but remains fairly a conservative design overall. Same goes for the interior too, really. There's not a lot in here by way of surprise or invention. I mean, the dash, the design is classy, it's functional, it's very solidly built, but I would be lying if I told you this was super stylish. A lot of people would think of sophistication and maturity when you think of VW's simple and sensible design. And you know what? If I was selling 1 million cars a year, I too would want a design that's not going to offend anybody, but there's a lot more interesting interiors out there, like the Peugeot 3008, Range Rover Evoque, Hyundai Tucson. That's catching up very quickly. Most significant changes for the updated interior includes a new infotainment screen with touch-sensitive buttons, a panel for climate control underneath it which replaces the rotary dials in the previous model with touch-sensitive slide controls, a new steering wheel with, you guessed it, touch-sensitive buttons, plus a 10-inch digital display where the dials used to be. The digital display is called Cockpit Pro and only comes as standard if you go for the top-spec R-Line or Elegance models. This R-Line model also has the optional rear-view camera and head-up display. The Tiguan remains as comfortable as ever here in the back. Now, the second generation, of which this is an updated version of that, was a bit wider, a bit longer, so it made it a lot more spacious back here. In the updated version, they haven't really changed any of that. Me, 5'6", plenty of leg room, plenty of headroom. It's a lot more space than you get in the Ford Kuga and the Renault Kadjar. Also, rear bench slides forward, these ones too. They slide forward 17 centimetres, so you get more boot space. Now, I naturally have the optional £945 sunroof. Now, while it does make this area and a bit lighter here in the back, you don't have to be as fancy as me, because I think the Tiguan does feel like a solid choice for a family SUV, because here in the back you can comfortably seat 3 people and it feels nice and roomy anyway. Boot space is another one of the Tiguan's strength, as you get 615 litres if you slide the rear bench all the way forward. Only a petrol version of the latest Hyundai Tucson or a Citroën C5 Aircross with its rear bench slid fully forward are direct rivals offering bigger boots. With the 40-20-40 split folding rear seats fully pushed back for maximum legroom, there's still a respectable 520 litres, and folding them down frees up 1,655 litres of space. As you'd expect from an SUV, the opening of the boot is a nice square shape, and there are practical touches in it like slide storage compartment, lashing points to tie things down, hooks for bags, and a lever to fold down the rear seats. As you can probably tell from the body kit, 20-inch wheels, tinted windows and other little shiny bits and bobs, this is not the Tiguan that you get when you go for the entry-level model. That one is significantly plainer than this, that starts around £25,000. This R-Line model is around 33 grand and you get a lot of extra kit, and also when you're paying extra money you get access to the more powerful engines. Allow me to explain. The Tiguan trim range starts with the standard Tiguan and then the Life trim, and then finally the Elegance and R-Line models. The entry-level model feels quite basic, but does come with 17-inch alloy wheels, LED lights, and an 8-inch touchscreen with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. This model is only available with the least powerful petrol engine. Volkswagen expects the mid-spec Life model to be the most popular.
It's our pick, with extra engine choices, 18-inch alloy wheels, sat-nav, climate control and parking sensors. The Elegance and R-Line models cost roughly the same, but Elegance is more about luxury, whereas R-Line is sportier. As mentioned, these models give access to the most powerful engines. You get bigger wheels, better lights, heated seats and a rear-view camera, as well as a fully digital instrument panel. The R-Line adds sport suspension.
This car has the 148 brake horsepower 1.5 litre petrol with a 7-speed automatic gearbox. Now that combination is predicted to be the most popular in the Tiguan, which we think makes complete sense because we think it represents the sweet spot in the engine range. Now this engine is used in a lot of VW Group cars. It's generally smooth, it's powerful enough. In the Tiguan, the DSG gearbox that shifts nicely, nice and relaxing. It'll do 0 to 62 in a very respectable 9.2 seconds, which isn't too bad for an SUV. The 2-litre diesel has the same gearbox, same amount of power, is just as good as this one, really. I mean, it's a fraction slower in a straight line, but it has more pulling power if you're going to use it for towing, and it will do 48 rather than 38 miles per gallon that this one does. I'd say the biggest downside of that, though, is it's going to cost you an extra $2,500 if that's the one you want, so it's worth checking before you spend the extra money to make sure it's worth it.
The core engine range consists of 4 petrol and 2 diesel options. The 148 brake horsepower diesel is the most economical of the 6 choices. Going for the more powerful engines, an automatic gearbox and 4-wheel drive all have a negative effect on economy. Once you reach the top of the range engines, you'll have to put up with a fuel economy in the low 30s. As you can tell, there's not much to tempt company car drivers in the current lineup. If you really want a Tiguan as a company car, you're best to wait for the plug-in hybrid model.
So as well as the plug-in hybrid, which is set to be released later this year, you also have the high-performance Tiguan R, which has already been released. But I'll be honest, this doesn't feel like the sort of car that's screaming out for more power. This standard version doesn't anyway. And the Tiguan is a family car, which is primarily about being comfortable and easy to live with, which we think they have done a really good job of that. I mean, yeah, there's plenty of grip, nice bit of weight to the steering. It doesn't feel particularly engaging or sporty. Not a lot of SUVs are, really. If you're trying to think of this car as a performance car, that doesn't really make any sense. Like this R-Line model, for example, is fitted with sport suspension. So while it doesn't lean much in corners, it also means you feel every lump and bump in the road. And when it's a family SUV, that doesn't seem to be worth the trade-off. Well, just like some of the other bigger VWs, like the Arteon or the Passat, the Tiguan is an unruffled cruiser on the B roads rather than anything incredibly fun. It is solid and secure when you drive. The steering is accurate. It is nice and quiet in here. It makes me think of the word competent.
Right, let's run through the deal makers and deal breakers for the Volkswagen Tiguan. This is a comfortable, quiet and relaxing car to drive, especially with the standard suspension setup. The Tiguan offers plenty of space for passengers in the back, and the sliding rear bench adds flexibility. The boot is a good size and shape, and has some handy features. Some rivals are better value than the Tiguan, and range-topping models can be very expensive. The understated, slightly anonymous style will appeal to some, but others may be put off by the Tiguan's lack of personality.
This latest version of the Tiguan is a little bit more stylish on the outside, a bit more modern on the inside, but it's not really vastly different to the previous one, which I suppose makes sense, considering how popular that one turned out to be. And I think one of the reasons for that is that this is such a good all-rounder. It remains a classy, polished, practical family SUV that really benefits from VW's tried and tested engines, secure handling and upmarket image. Now, while it might not offer much in the way of flair or personality, that kind of works two ways really, because it means it's not full of gimmicks or quirks that's going to put people off. It might not be the most exciting car in the world, but it quietly and competently does all the things that family SUV buyers want it to do. I think the only downside is a lot of the competitors are catching up very, very quickly.
If you found this video useful, then why not watch our Ford Kuga review or our SUVs playlist. Thanks for watching.